call this meeting to order. Let the record show that all commissioners are present. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4, discuss possible action on budget work on the budget workshop for fiscal year 2017-2018. And I know there's some people that still want to come and make some adjustments to their budget. You know, Judge Gonzalez wanted to, and I know the sheriff wanted to, and I know Roger wanted to. So, Judge, would you come up here, please?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Judge. Commissioner Wardlaw, Commissioner Owens, Commissioner Addison, Commissioner Flores, good morning. And everyone else that's here as well. Mrs. Smith, the district, the county clerk, Mr. Padilla, and everybody else. Thank you for this opportunity. The purpose of me being here this morning is to bring to your attention that I would like to continue the specialty court. I don't have the grant money that was renewed by the governor's office. My intent is not to increase any responsibility by the county with respect to money, but I would like to use that $46,000. One, to continue the current position that I have at $23,715. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Weinberg. I believe it's $23,715 for the program manager, coordinator, or director. And then I also have the benefits, and then I have the monies that are left over to pay for the court reporter, to bring that court reporter up to from 52 more or less to 63, 64, somewhere in there. And the court reporter will be making right at or right underneath what the court reporters make in the district court. Matt was kind enough to prepare a survey of the court reporters throughout the state of Texas, and he submitted those documents to you. That was not through my instructions, that was through Judge Cadena's instructions, is that correct? And so I provided a courtesy copy to the commissioners. So that's what I'm asking for.
The 46 that's in there, Judge, that you keep mentioning, my understanding is when we did the 46, and I guess it was our fault for not catching it and taking it out before, but when we did the 46, that money was for the probation officer, but it was supposed to be reimbursed, so it was never going to cost the county any funds. Is that right?
Well, I think what happened was we hired the individual at 46. I think that included benefits and the salary based on the position for probation. Mm-hmm. And then when the person was actually hired, the person, it turned out that person should be under the probation department budget because he or she could not have access to the confidential information on the computers. And so therefore, Mr. Montalvo picked up the salary. And the money remained there. And then it actually was transferred from the judge's by the judge's budget into the year.
Yeah. Well,
for the last 2 years.
My concern is that it never was supposed to be used unless it was going to be reimbursed. Now, evidently, we made a mistake by leaving it in there 2 years.
Well, I don't know what all I know is that the money was there.
No.
And we hired a probation officer. And that's all that I know.
Yeah.
I never talked to anybody.
But the conversations that we had here when you came in, those conversations, and I'm pretty sure we could look them up and listen to the recordings, that money that's there was there because we were going to get reimbursed.
Well, I'm not trying to argue otherwise or argue against it or for it. I'm just telling you that all I'm asking the Commissioner's Court to do is to
create another position and fund it.
Well,
you're asking us, the DWI
all I'm asking the
manager, to bring him in, create that position for the county to fund it. That's what you're asking, and you're asking to go up
Well, we can turn it,
From
we can,
$52,870.38 to $64,155. So basically, you're asking for another $12,000 that the court approved for your court reporter, and then you're asking for a totally new position for the court to fund without being reimbursed. That's what you're asking.
yes.
Yes. Yeah. The 46 that's here, maybe, I mean, it's our fault. We should have taken it out, because when we talked about it, that money was there because we were going to be reimbursed. And that's how come right now, it's not there. So in reality, you're just asking bottom line that the court fund the $23,715 plus benefits and add $12,000 to your court report. That's what you're asking.
The fact that the governor did not re-award the grant does not mean that the specialty court cannot function. My intent is not for the county to pick up any additional expenses from the specialty court. All those expenses will be either through services, outside services that we've already contacted, and those expenses will be paid, some of them by the participants, and some of them by the other outlining services that I've already contacted, including assessments, psychologicals, counselings, etc. So I'm not asking the county to bear any additional expenses on the specialty court program. I think it's a good program. I think it enhances the value of our public safety in our community. It monitors people daily, it monitors people weekly, it monitors people on the weekends. We have a big problem with drugs and alcohol in our community. And sitting in jail is not the answer all the time. We got to get people out of this jail and get them monitored. And these people can be rehabilitated, and that's what the special support program is all about. It's about enhancing public safety in our community. And that's what we would like to continue. The fact that I don't have the award doesn't mean that I can't run the specialty court. I can run it for veterans court, family court under the statute. I can run it for prostitution court. I can run it for mental health court, which we do need help on. A lot of people go into jail arrested, and the officers have a hard time because they're really suicidal or could have PTSD or other problems that they may have. And they shouldn't be sitting in that darn jail. They should be out getting services immediately. We should have someone in services to transfer people to Kerrville instead of having law enforcement do it all the time. And so we can also do the drug court and the DVI court and the family court. We do need it for family violence because we have a lot of problems, as you all know, with the shelter. One last thing I'd like to mention to you, when the probation department moves to the new facility, one of the things that is a possibility is that since the case manager and the caseworker work hand in hand, the case manager and probation department work hand in hand, and they have to sometimes when they visit probation, they have to also visit the case manager at the same time. They have to put on scram units, they have to do UAs, they have to put on monitoring devices that they have to wear. And the case manager has to go to the probation department. It's almost daily. So it might be more beneficial, according to, after speaking to Greg Montalvo, that person be actually at the probation department budget just in case, because they work hand in hand. It's not that I want that position under my budget. It's not about me. It's not about me taking recognition for this program. It's not about me. It's about helping these people, enhancing public safety in our community. That includes working with law enforcement, working with probation department, working with the court, working with everybody. And Matt, you've had a chance to look at this program from the inception when you first got here, and I know that you know how it works and how it works. The last monitor that we got from the governor's office, if you could address me with that, there was no major concerns. The judge was there. Is that right?
Correct. There are no major concerns.
No monies that we owe. Nothing was done wrong. Everything's working in order. In fact, they were very pleased, right?
Judge, your intent on that specialty court is to charge for that?
Yes. The statute allows me, Commissioner, thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner, it's a great point. The special court statute allows courts like all over the state of Texas to charge up to $1,000 a year, or $1,000 per participant. And my intent is to charge for that.
How much were you going to charge?
Well, if you take 1,000 divided by 12, I think it comes out to, and correct, about 83 or so, more or less a month.
That's per person or what?
What, I don't have it in front of me, but it's about 80-something dollars. That's my intent.
83.30.
Yeah, 83. I had already looked at that, and that's my intent. Not, I can charge, some courts charge 500, some courts don't charge. We didn't charge because we weren't ready to charge. In speaking with Matt, we were gonna set up a separate account to do that, but the intent was not to start the collection of that monies until October the 1st.
But what are their anticipated revenues?
That would be on how many people are in the program.
Yeah, and the good thing about it is that under the specialty court, when we finished, we had, I think when I say finished, when we were, the last time we had was 32. We're down to 28 after some graduates, and we were at 32. We're getting ready to pick up 3 or 4. We're around 32.
Do you anticipate them having the ability to pay that fee?
Well, I anticipate having at least 75% of the people being able to pay the fee.
Is there something there on the indigent deal? That's all we kept hearing this past week when we went to school, is if they declare indigently or whatever, basically you
Yeah, you
can't.
can't charge them.
Well, but the specialty court statute allows you to charge at the same time. In certain cases, you can charge. So I had talked to Matt, we've already set it up, we can actually generate money. Now, under the governor's grant, we're not limited anymore to some of the parameters that we were before. So since we don't have the grant, I can generate more participants in the program.
Judge, do you have an idea as to how much you generate per year on this
Well,
program?
I'm speculating,
More or
Commissioner,
less?
but I would like to, $20,000 to $30,000. Maybe more, but I mean, I don't want to give you a figure and you say, well, you told me you were going to collect $40,000, you only collected 20. But that is an option, and I wanted to let you know that I can generate up to $1,000 a year, and that's going to be what's going to happen. We divide 12 months probation fees, program fee, and divide it by 12 months, and that's how we collect it.
And the final court costs are included too?
No.
Judge, would you tell us
If the
again,
person
would you tell us again what it is you're requesting on your salary budget?
Yes, sir. And Matt, can you help me on that? I'm requesting the 23,715 for
I've got the numbers here, Judge.
Well, I don't have it in front of me.
No, I've got it.
Okay.
I just did it.
It's
They're
$23,715.
$23,715.75. Health, retirement's $2,883. FICA's $1,814.25. That position would be a $28,330 position, plus, insurance.
That's project manager, DWI.
Yes, sir. And then it would go, to the 23,000, when you add friends and everything in there, it goes to $34,378.83.
And whatever the
And then
balance is.
the other position, on the court reporter, if you just go by what the 83rd, 63rd, what they're making here, that's a $12,067.62 difference. We raised that one, $12,067.62.
To the
52.
To the 52.
Yeah, well, it'd be 52,000, what they're making now is $52,087.38. What he'd want to go to is a $64,155, and that's what the other one's making here in town. Is that right? So there would be a $12,067.62. So that one would be
So
$64,155.
Commissioner Middleton, you have-
The 63rd is making 64,155, and the 83rd is making 63,800.
So those would be the only changes on probation officer and the DWI project manager.
You'd have to
Yeah.
create that position because he's not ours right now.
And in speaking with
I
Greg,
used the 64, excuse me, Judge, I used the 64 because that's the number that he brought up was the 64, not the 63.
and I don't know when the probation department is actually moving to Commissioner to the new facility, but,
Your guess would be as good as mine.
okay, all right. I would like to at some point, and if Greg is correct on this, and they do work hand in hand on a daily basis, it might be better for that person to actually eventually move over to that department.
We need to do one step at a time.
Yeah, we'll do one, I'm just giving you a heads up what I would like to do.
The position that you have now, the DWI project manager, when does it end?
The project manager position ends on the 31st under the grant.
Okay.
He will be doing some additional work, to close out, because we're getting statements at no pay. We're getting statements from this month that come in next month. They have to be reviewed, make sure that the services were provided, and we have to close out the FSR, financial statement report. And we have to send it to Debbie for review, and then they send it to Matt for his review, and make sure everything's okay. And, that's the plan to get that done. It shouldn't be too much, and maybe a week or so into September to get him to finish some of that stuff, just to comply with.
So the total cost to the county, Matt, to do this?
$46,446.45. That's with the 12,067 and the 34,378.83.
34.
Had you done it? I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Well, I'm just sitting here
How do
playing
you
with
get
it.
into, how do you get into that?
Uh,
If you already got a salary on a court report of 52. and you're
Because I
taking-
added $12,067 to the 34,378 of the grant.
Yeah, I'd like to say something concerning what the judge is asking for. I think it would be an asset to his department and to the county.
This one here is budget
And,
52, so the 52 would come.
You know, I would love to
Oh.
be able to help you, but
So this would just,
I'm also thinking about our employees, Judge, across the board, especially the ones that are hourly wages. That I would, us, the court, Matt, and everybody else, try to figure out a way to come up with some money to give them a raise. And this would not include elected officials, department heads, appointed employees or exempt employees. I think it's great what you're asking for, and I'm all for it, but I'm also keeping a open mind to the rest of the employees that at least to help them with the cost of living. I know the money's tight, but maybe we can come up with something.
Right.
To what is all
All right,
done and
thank-
over with.
what y'all wanna do on this?
I want to get all the numbers together, these changes, and figure out what the total to the budget's going to be, and then we can start addressing them.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
Just for your confirmation, Matt had sent me a text, I'll give this to you, Commissioners. It had 23,715, 11,000, help me out here, 11,913.
That's if we're taking them up to 64, it'd be 11,913.
This was based on 64, not based on 64.1 or 64.3, or, it's a little bit less than what the district court reporter makes, but he made it flat. I told him not to make it more. Can you give him the figures?
11,913,
Was for what?
that's added to the corporate.
And then the benefits?
The benefits, we figured those in there, but
All right.
probably about 1.25.
And that doesn't go over 46, right?
Correct.
What?
That's 46.
I know, I understand that, but that's the figure that we used as a base.
Right, we were basing that before fringe.
That's fine.
Just like all the other salary people are.
I'm sorry, I messed up on my numbers. You need to add another $2,348.24 to that 46,000 after everything, because I didn't figure in, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
And I think I can generate a good portion of that from the special report statute. It's at least 20.
My issue, you know, I think the programs are good, but when we look at the numbers, you're 80, you're gonna be higher than the,
state?
You're gonna be higher than the 83rd at 64, because their salary is 63,810.
Let me restate this again, and I told Matt this. I don't want my court reporter to make more than the district court reporters. Whatever that is, I don't know what that is, but I thought it was 64.
One of them is at 64, 155.50. One of them is at 63, 810.55.
So you don't base the numbers on the 63, 8, 10, 55?
I'm thinking more like the 63 even.
Okay.
62 to 63.
Just make it 62. If it's $2,000 in fringe benefits, just take the $2,000 out. Make it
Based on
62 or
62.
61, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. Just reduce it by $2,000, whatever the fringe benefits are.
Okay.
Thank you
Keep
very
track of
much.
these numbers.
Thank you, Judge.
Keep track of these numbers.
Got it?
Okay.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Y'all have a great day. May I please be excused?
Sure. Mr. Cerny, I think you had some requests also?
Thank you, Judge. My request is very simple. I just want to transfer $1,000 from training and travel into office supply, and then another $500 from postage into office supply.
You know what page you're on? Roger?
94.
94.
We use a lot of color toning. Most everything we do requires particular inspections on OSSF.
Okay, could you repeat those numbers, Mr. Cerny?
Yes, sir. 1,000 out of travel and training into office supply, and 500 out of postage into office supply. If you notice, I had to make a transfer this year. I had to make a budget transfer. I don't know what pages.
94.
94.
So you would keep the postage at 1,000 and the travel to 6,000?
Yeah, that's correct, sir.
Okay.
And that will increase my,
The travel. The travel's gonna drop from 6,650 to 5,550.
that's fine.
And then the postage would drop from 1,425 down to 975.
That's fine. Yes, that was, your budget has the 5% across the board reduction. Because, that's it. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Sheriff's Office also want to, go ahead.
Morning, Judge, morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Make this short. There's three things that the sheriff, he's with family this morning, and he'll be out of pocket for a couple of days, but he asked me to bring up three things. One was, and this is nothing new to any of y'all, but we're hurting for manpower. The one position that he was the one that y'all approved back on, I believe it was the Commissioners Court on May the 8th, where y'all approved one position to be bailiff in the JP Court. In looking at the numbers, we didn't see those numbers reflected on the new hire, on the new proposed budget that we had. Now, Matt said this morning that it's there as of
Right.
today. So as long as that's official,
Yeah,
we're good.
here's the problem I was telling Commissioner Nettleton, that every time we talk about it, I'm not going to break the whole thing up until we adopt the whole budget. We did the proposed budget one time, and I'm not going to be using so much paper doing it every time we amend it to the very end.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So as long as the position's there, we're good, Judge. The second thing is I know that the sheriff spoke to y'all, I believe, in the last commission meeting regarding the 1,800 for the USVP contract for the towers, the money that falls. Okay, in talking with Matt, we would prefer that instead of that being on the budget as a line item, we actually would prefer that to be in Tyler as a line item, and here's why. Because if it's on the budget, you explained that expires at the end of the fiscal year.
A line item in your departmental budget, yes.
Okay, so, well, that money, there should have been three payments, one for 2015, one for 2016, and I don't know if the money for 2017 is dropped yet. But that totals out $5,400. Can we have that in Tyler as a line item that we could use POs against? That money would automatically roll over and it would not be subject to being expired at the end of the fiscal year?
So you're asking the court to create a special revenue fund for, to be restricted only for this expense, to have an equity balance that rolls over from year to year until those funds are expended?
Yes, exactly, because that should be, as long as that contract is, 1,500 should come into it. And if we have a major issue with a tower or towers, that money could be exhausted quickly.
Talking
So
about the
that,
revenue coming into it versus the expenditures, a separate line item.
yes, sir.
What you said would work.
Okay, so the department will officially create that special, okay, you got it.
And then the last one is the TCO money is, that's kind of the same thing, right? You're doing basically the same thing with that.
As the Leo's funds?
Yes, sir.
Correct, special revenue.
Has that already been done, or do I?
That's already been created, so it's already in the budget.
Then that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you.
That was an easy one, Dick.
Fixed it before you got it.
All right, any other elected or supervisor want to come over and speak about the budget?
I've got
Go ahead.
And I was going over this with Matt a little while ago, and I know it's less than 1%, but it does total to $117,500. On page 68 of the 219, the revenue, if we look at what's projected there for the sheriff, I came out with $4,000 less. The taxes, excessor fees, that one there, I came out with $55,000 less. This is after looking it up last night on the computer and then adding a percentage back in. And then the district fees, $31,500 less. Precinct 2, $13,000 less. And the court and law, $14,000 less. Totaled $117,500. But, and again, I know like Matt explained, it's less than 1%. But it's still $117,500 that I don't think we're gonna hit. So I would ask if the court would please, advise to readjust those numbers. The sheriff, tax assessor, district, precinct 2, and county court at law, to get closer to what, just because it is $117,000.
Okay.
Sheriff, tax collector, it's sheriff, tax assessor, it says sheriff, tax assessor fees, district clerk fees, JP precinct 2, and court at law fees. And I have the dollar amounts here again, if you want me to go. But there were $117,500 that I believe it's less income than what we're, even after they were adjusted for the 2017-2018 budget. It's still less.
How'd you come up with those numbers?
Last night I got on the computer and looked up every account, what the balance was as of, what was deposited in July and what the deposits, were as of, August. And when you add another month to it, that's how I came up with those fees.
Good.
And I'll get these to you, man.
Okay. Is that it, Commissioner?
We have, when I look at your numbers, Matt, you're sitting in there with an interest of thinking on this page 67. No, actually it's not. It's just something that you gave me. You end this coming year interest sinking fund of $1.592 million. Our current debt on that fund is about 1.2 million.
Approximately 1.1, 1.2, yes.
1.2. What if we went ahead and added back in and took that ending cash balance down to 1.2 and added in that as a line of credit in the general fund, which gives you $392,000 in there
As
additional revenue of $392,000.
Commissioner?
And then you had,
I think one of the reasons that he might have done that, you had brought it up about trying to pay for Frontera.
no, I understand. I understand, and we're gonna have to look at how we're gonna deal with that here in a minute. You had sent me a text. I'd ask you to look at what it would cost per penny in pay raises if we don't give elected officials pay raises, just employees.
Yes.
You calculated it at about $76,000.
Correct.
For
Now,
every 1%, more or less,
and then I just heard the discussion about
Yeah.
no department heads, no appointed, that,
so that takes
those
it down.
numbers, yeah, correct. The numbers I gave you were just, non-exempt employees, I'm sorry, elected officials.
Yeah.
And that's it. The department heads were
So if
included.
we take out the other part, then it probably takes it down to about 60-something.
I'm not gonna do math in
All
my
right.
head, that gets me in trouble.
No, I understand. And we're gonna get to that math problem in a minute. So if we did a 1 or 2% for employees only, no elected officials, no appointed officials, we would be talking about somewhere in the vicinity of $72,000 a year, more or less,
It'd be lower than the 70.
but more or less. Because you gotta add all the
Mhm.
other stuff to it.
Mhm.
So if you did a 2% for those employees, then we'd be somewhere in the 120 to 140. More or less.
Yes.
Can you run the numbers? If Diane can, I know you can't write this up.
On a, on 2%, no elected officials, no department heads, no appointed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that.
And then, when you calculated the tax rate, because we're gonna get to that here in a minute, so that we all understand. The effective rate versus the, current rate. We had talked about it generating $800,000, but actually that's not the case.
Correct.
It generates somewhere around 80,000.
Correct. Did math in my head. I shouldn't have done that. My decimal point was off, and I ran with it. So it's 100% my fault on that. However, the good news is we still do have time. We still have time for the 2 public hearings. If that is the rate, if you just do desire to go up, we do have time to get it all done.
But if we just adopt the effective rate,
If we just adopt it,
it would generate approximately
0.79.
$79,000 a year. Which would equate to about a 1% pay raise for everybody except elected officials, department heads.
Correct.
And then we've got the issue, we have in here on Ontario, we have, how much set aside?
368.
Ontario, 367, 930. 930, and we're gonna need somewhere in the vicinity of about $1.8, $2 million, somewhere around there.
Okay.
We anticipate.
All right.
But we probably won't need that until next fiscal year, right? But we will have to let that contract this coming fiscal year. I think we let it in August. August. And in order to let the contract, we're gonna have to have the revenue available to do that. So what would be our cost if we end up, if you're at 2 million, just say we are, and I'm not saying that's what the number's gonna be. You're gonna need about $1.6 million. Because you already got 300 and something thousand out of it.
Okay.
What, and I know you don't have the answer right off the top of your head. If we do a tax note to cover that cost, do you have any idea what that annual debt would be on a 7-year note or less? I mean, can you find out? I know you don't have it, but can you find out?
Yeah, we can find out.
And I can run a basic number, but I mean, you know, if you do a 1.7 at 3.5, for 7 years,
If you base it on the 450,000 that we're paying on the 2.5 million, it's like 288,000 at one point,
it's 22,
1.6 million.
20, right at 23,000 a month. So you need to generate about $276,000 out of the interest seeking fund to cover that debt, that annual debt.
Okay.
Can you start
putting numbers together with those things, and so we can start looking at what that effect is. I mean, I understand part of it with the pay raise issue and the change in the tax rate, the way it's supposed to be.
That's already in there, but yes.
In the new one?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, he put it.
Okay,
Yeah,
good, yeah.
it was a
Yeah, you already put it.
0.39, not 3.9. Look. The moving money out of the interest and sinking and move it into the general fund, that's illegal, ain't it? If we're gonna be using it for.
A straight move?
Illegal.
A transfer?
But we were always, I've been here 7 years, and I've heard it every year that if the money from interest and sinking needs to be used for capital improvement. So if we're just moving it just to be a fund balance in order to be able to spend it other than capital improvements, what I've been told for 7 years is either that's wrong or what we're doing is wrong.
I mean, what we're currently doing is
What we're gonna do if we move money from interest and sinking.
well, we just have to find some projects to spend it on,
If-
instead of spending general fund money on those projects.
And that would work, but if you find projects to spend it on, since there's no capital improvements in this deal, now you're creating more expense.
We have got.
And I think that what we did with the 910, I'm gonna go and throw it out there, what we did with the 910, that we're fixing to borrow to put it in our budget, to fund our budget, I think that's illegal too. I'm just gonna throw that out there, and I know my county attorney's looking at it, but it's wrong.
We could take the capital assets that we acquired during the year, and we could replace the general fund with the line of credit, which went into the general fund. So it could be said that it was used to purchase those capital equipment items.
You know, if we hadn't gone crazy for the last 2 years spending money like it was water, we wouldn't be sitting here. We find ourselves in these positions. We're staring down the back of needing, we've been having a conversation for years about a purchasing warehouse. Everybody's screaming at Roy that they want to get rid of their stuff, but we got no place to put it. We're going to have to find a facility to set this up and do it right. That's probably going to cost us a couple $100,000. We got to find the money somewhere to do this. This is getting to the point that it is creating a problem. We need to, I think we need to look at this year trying to figure out a way to resolve the purchasing issue that everybody has. And that's going to require us to have some sort of facility somewhere with yards and warehousing to be able to deal with all that. And I expect that to cost a few $100,000. If you do move that out of the interest and sinking fund, that is a capital project. If we don't use the 910, we basically shut down the county, starting effective immediately. I think we've spent quite a bit of capital. We're either staring down the back of a massive tax increase, or we've got to figure out a way to get this budget under control. I still think there are places in this budget to cut. I think travel and training in this budget is still extremely large. I think there's still places to cut. I think we're over this next year, we're going to have to really watch closely how we deal with this so we can get a handle on what these expenditures are. I think there's another 5% in here that you could probably cut and still manage. It would be surgical cuts, not across the board cuts, but I think there's still places in here that can be cut. There's still needs in this county. Those needs are never going to go away. The one good thing that has come out of this issue is that people are actually starting to look for ways to find money now. They'll figure out they have funds and there's other ways to generate revenue, to start looking for it. We still have a mess in the district clerk's office that we have to fix that is hundreds of thousands of dollars that's owed to this county.
$4 million since 1998 is what's on the paperwork, my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, how accurate that would be, that would
I just, the sheet that I saw said $4 million.
You know, even if it's $300,000 or $400,000, it's still a lot of
You know,
money.
Commissioner, you and I think the judge had sat together the other day and looked at it, and when y'all went over what was in our audits, there's about $300,000 that's there that has not been distributed. And that's a pretty accurate statement,
But
I would say, right?
distributed to whom?
It's just sitting in an
That's a good
account,
question.
they ain't been sent out. So when you look at the sheriff, and I know that the line item here, that is listed as sheriff, we had $100 and some odd thousand, we're gonna be about 85, but it's not really the sheriff money. The individual that's supposed to be collecting those funds, some of them have been collected, they're just sitting in a box, the money's sitting in the bank, but who it's supposed to go to, sitting in a box, and it tells you, the case tells you who it's supposed to go to. That's not been done. And there's another $330,000 that's probably out there that just recent that has not been collected. So, and they're working on it.
Excuse me, when you get money from the clerks, don't y'all disperse out?
They're not getting the money.
We take whatever they give us. If they're holding money somewhere else, we don't know.
And how do you know who to disperse it to? Do they send you a sheet, or?
They'll usually come on a sheet, but we've never received these funds as supposed to be dispersed.
So if she prepared a sheet to show how it's supposed to be broken down, she can just deposit it to you and you can disperse?
At this moment, I don't think that account's even in our name to even disperse it.
They haven't almost got the account. When the auditor went in to do the special audit of those funds, what did they find?
we found that it, one of his words was non-audible.
It's not auditable.
It's non-audible. We have no place to start. They can't even tell us who the money belongs to, where the money's supposed to go.
They can go do their research, the district clerk's office can do their research, and they can tell you, they should be able to tell you by the case number where it's where each piece,
Yeah.
is supposed to go. But our outside auditors, didn't have no place to start. It was like, here it is. So it's just
And that-
money, just color money.
That's something we're gonna have to fix this year.
Correct.
And there's a cost associated with fixing this.
Right. The court cost accounts have been set up. We're going by departments, asking them to close their accounts and deposit with the county. And we will have some done by this month. And hopefully we'll wrap up the big three. Big three being the court clerks and the tax assessor. We'll wrap those up by the end of September.
So
coming new fiscal year, hopefully all the accounts will be closed.
So when we look at, like Commissioner Owens was saying, on these revenues anticipated to be less, by what time are we gonna get to the point where we're comfortable with what the anticipated revenues next year are gonna be?
His numbers, Commissioner, his numbers are actually, I mean, he's done a really good job, and we've been arguing over these six, probably for 4 or 5 weeks. Those numbers are based on our revenue, what's being brought in right now. I mean, and he's actually,
That we know,
their
of,
office.
that we know.
Yes,
of.
sir. Yes,
You
sir.
know, the problem is we still don't know all of the money that's sitting there and what it's for and where it goes yet.
Correct, but we do know that some of it is fees of office. That will-
Yeah, we do know some of it is, but we don't know what that number is.
One account that we looked at is a big, huge account at the district clerk's office, that it could be a trust fund. But we don't have a record where the money came from, where it's supposed to be distributed, and that's the biggest concern I've got.
Is it interest bearing?
I really don't know anything about it.
No, I don't think it is. Which I think is pretty clear in the statute, those are required to be interest-bearing
So it's probably
accounts.
not a trust.
I'm gonna have to leave in a minute, but just one last thing. I commend the commissioners and the judge for trying to give raises again. I really do. But last year, if you made $30,000 or less, you ended up with a 6% raise. There were some individuals that, depending on what you were making, ended up with a 10% raise. I would hope that the court, and it's good to run the numbers, figure out where we're at. But this court, and I will say it again, over the last 7 years, and even before that, when y'all were here, has been very generous with what the court has done, and when you go back and look, when you give, since 2011 to here, when you give 28%, you give $1,888,000 plus benefits, and you started out at $6.5 million as your wages, as salaries. 28%, that's just a lot to have given out. So,
Commissioner, I know you have to leave real quick, but this is where we started at. This is our starting point. Now we just need to concentrate on this number right here. This is where we're at, 1.8. Through the cuts, through 2 phases of cuts, and I can run through those, and we've added minimal amounts of revenue. Now we're at 1. So now we need to find a solution for that.
and
We've done the cuts.
the thing about it though is, I mean, I think Commissioner Nettleton and the judge both have said all the time, we keep using up our reserves.
Mhm.
So I think it's time to me, my opinion would be is, need to listen a little bit closer. And not just keep eating that. And I know I'm gonna go ahead and say the words, so don't get mad. We need to quit eating that shit up.
What was the word?
Just my opinion. Focus, y'all.
I know it's secret.
Who's helping
Judge, can I say something about the judge? She just asked me a question, who's helping Joanne, the judge, and Bo had actually, had already had one meeting.
And then we've got-
Another meeting.
The auditors are helping her.
Yeah, auditors, right.
Yeah,
Trying to-
and I think they were having a meeting, with the sheriff, they were trying to coordinate with the sheriff. They'd offered, and I'd offered that, maybe she come back with something, a plan, that we needed to set aside more money. And like Joanne tells me, she said, well, you keep saying there's no money, and I said, well, but if we had to spend $50,000 to go collect $600,000, I think it would be so they're coming up with a plan.
We've asked her to put together a plan to bring back to us the cost, either an outside auditor, a full-time employee in the department, or whatever the case may be. I mean, because I'm not familiar with the whole problem over there, but there is a problem.
And,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
and this is not her problem. The problem was created back in '98, way back then. But there's no accountability on all those accounts. Even if you try to go to the bank will not give you information because it just says this much will deposit on this account, that's it. But we don't know, like I said before, we don't know if one of those monies are a trust. We don't know where it came from. So we actually gave some recommendations what she could do. Either she could hire a full-time person to just collect this money and tell us, how are you going to collect it? Where do they go? What account are they going to go to? Or we could hire somebody full-time to collect that money, but that's all they would do, those accounts. Or use our outside auditor, or the ones that we hired, our auditors that we hired. But we gave her 4 or 5 solutions that help her out. Now it's up to her to come up with some recommendations that she wants the court to help us out.
On these recent deposits, has anybody talked to her about her software? If they're generating reports with the court costs?
They do generate reports, and there is capacity within the bounds of those softwares to send out collection letters, but we have to actually use the software.
That's a good point. The software does have the capability of generating 30, 60, 90 days letters. It does have to be set up. Since 2015, they did start going with an direct deposit to pay those fees, and that's one of the issues. Is those fees were being collected in the bank account, but they were not taken out of the
They
software.
weren't they're being deposited, but there's no record.
She currently is working with the representative over at her software, and they are actually going through those and getting them out. How long that process is going to take, not sure, but I am.
It's a good first step.
Correct, but I am in contact with them probably on a bi-monthly basis.
Well, it sounds like the county auditor's office can handle it by this.
And maybe they can't. I mean,
But
With no additional staff.
But some of these accounts, we don't know what they're going to be used for, so we asked her to contact her, like I have the County Judges Association, to give us a direction of where the money is going to go to. So we gave her directions what to use. We tried to help, we met for about 2 hours, Commissioner, for about 2 hours, and we tried to help her out with the situation. Hopefully she can come up before the next meeting on recommendations she wants us to help her with. That's what we're doing. Mr. Stern, you wanted something to say?
Just a quick remark, Judge.
In reference to salaries, I think that the court has done a tremendous job in increasing the salaries over the previous years. However, I think we need to bear in mind that still the vast majority, excluding elected officials and department heads, the vast majority of our employees are still making below the poverty guideline. And I think that's something that we need to take into consideration. I hope the court would take into consideration. Number two, if you're going to make surgical cuts, I think that's a great idea rather than across the board. However, I'd like to mention that the constables have done a tremendous job in assisting our department because they know that we're fairly short-handed, particularly Constable Hernandez, who I think just attended a school that was funded by his commissioner on abatement and that. So I would caution the court about not cutting their salaries for their budgets.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, I'd like to look at those changes we've talked about, see what the effect, I understand you can't give me the answer right this minute, I got that.
Right. But back to where we were, we still had a $1 million
Yes.
deficit. And everything that we've talked about either raises expenses or decreases revenue. Everything we've talked about today, which is kind of, we wanted to go in the other direction. We wanted to decrease expenses and increase revenue, so
Yeah.
we need to keep talking.
Well, I mean, you're talking about cutting $1 million out of this budget, and most of that is in the general fund. Right?
Okay.
Right?
Well, what's the recommendation?
You tell us, you're the numbers guy, where are you gonna get $1 million? There's two places to get it, massive cuts or tax increases. And to generate $1 million in revenue and tax increases, you're talking about, what is it, about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, about 5 cents?
Yeah, but as I stated in the beginning, we don't have to try to plug this in 1 year.
No,
But we've done pretty good. We went from 1.8 down to 1 through cuts.
No, I
That's
agree
pretty
with you, and I think we need to get a better handle on our special funds. I think we need to get better handles on revenues that can be generated, that aren't being generated, to start plugging these holes over the next year as we move through this process. You know, I don't think this is going to be one of those years where we're going to be able to wait till June or July and start the budget. I think we need to start it, you know, like October, November, start having discussions of how we're going to start really looking at this. Do we really need all the money we have in travel and training? Do we need all the money we have in office supplies? You know, do we really need all the pieces we need, and what is a better way to deal with this? I think there's still a lot of money out there that we haven't even addressed as far as special funds, and I mean, we just had this discussion with the district clerk, the district clerk, and the usage and how much money's sitting there. I think there's other places, there's funds that we're not charging for that we could be charging for. Some of those can be utilized to fix the budget, some of them can't. Some of them, not all of them.
Sure, when we add all those together, and what number do you think we're at?
Just special funds alone? Equates to about $2 million.
The ones that you are thinking that aren't already captured.
I think there's other fees that we can be charging that we're not charging. I don't know what they are. I have to go through every single one of these, but I think there are some fees. I mean, you know, a prime example is in the fire department for several years now. I know we have the ability to charge the insurance companies for going out to these wrecks and dealing with these things. We haven't done it. You know, we need to start doing it. That's a way to start balancing that budget and generating the revenue that it takes.
I would agree.
The sheriff and them are going through a lot of stuff now because there are apparently some fees that we could have been charging and we haven't charged. I think you're up to like $7,000 or $8,000 that y'all found. You know.
Well, it's the TDC.
Oh, yeah.
Reimbursement money, but we haven't seen a penny of that yet.
No, but
Right.
it's still money that you're looking for, you know, and that's a good thing that's come out of this, is people are starting to look for ways to find those types of revenues.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the only way to balance this budget is the tax increase. And we all know that.
Okay.
So you're talking about a 5-cent tax increase. You can't spend for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
It's going to be close to 5 cents. $1 million is close to 5 cents.
If you wanted to.
Yeah, just balance it
right
the
now
way it
today,
is.
which
Yes.
you don't need to do.
You know, and when you get into the conversation, and just like Commissioner Owens said, you know, when you look at our salaries, our base salaries are
1.6 million. Our current salaries are 8.4 million. There's a big piece in it, you know.
Can you get in people in at base?
We seem to have a habit of not accomplishing that task.
Correct.
But, you know, maybe you start looking at retirement incentives, maybe you start looking at different things. I mean, these are all lengthy. We only have a few months here, or we only have less than a month to get this budget done. If we wait too long in September, then we're not going to be able to send out the tax notices, and then we're going to have a bigger problem come October, November.
And if we are already at our effective rate, if we go above that, we will have to have 2 additional hearings.
Yeah, and, you know, we need to get back into, you know, years ago, every June or July, we normally had budget freezes. And we tightened our belt and did budget amendments and straightened things out and froze stuff and got things back in order. Which is why we always managed to end with about a $1.2 million ending cash balance. We haven't done that in several years, and we're seeing the effect on that. We have some mentalities out there that we spend to zero, and that's not the way it should be. It should be we spend what we need, but if we don't need it all, we don't spend it. But I think you have to create an incentive program for these departments not to spend everything. You know?
That's a good suggestion. So how
What was
how we
cut on
base
that 5% cut?
The 5% cut was mainly all operating. Now, there was a few, like our 990s, we didn't cut the 990s.
What was that amount?
What was the amount?
Right.
That amount came approximately 320-something.
You know, I think there's savings in getting a central purchasing warehouse instead of having people running all over town buying stuff, doing it centrally, buying it bulk on an annual basis. Those are all things that we have to look at over the next year. We can't fix all this between now and Monday after next. But we've done a good job of getting started and fixing it, but I think over the next year we need to spend some time really digging into this thing and really working on it and having lots of workshops and looking at these piece by piece by piece. And you know, I mean, we have to consider budget freezes. I don't know where we're going to be come October. Depends on when tax statements get out, revenues come in, depends on when you get reimbursed on the West Gate. There's a lot of ifs and ands.
It'll be very tight.
Yes.
There's no doubt.
So, I mean, we need to look at this again, I think, in January and see where we're at. We need to look at it again in probably May and see where we're at and have several discussions over the next year so as we get back to this budget process again next year, we have a handle on these. And do we really need to? You know, we're looking at travel and training and what the requirements are. I think in some areas there is excessive travel and training. I understand we need it, but in some areas I think there is. In some areas I think there's excessive office supplies. Not every department, but in some areas. So we're going to have to look at those piece by piece and what those costs are and what those savings are. But, you know, I'd like to look at the things that we've talked about and see what the effect is. You know.
Just to add a little bit to it, Commissioner, I'm sorry. We also need to come up with accountability. What are the accounts used for? Where can we spend them? I know Janie did a very good job of that when she gave us a presentation, and we're trying to do that with district clerk. But I would like all the elected offices to tell us what are they used for, what can they be used for, all the special accounts. And that's not asking too much, because we're asking only for your department, so we're not asking for the whole, for you to solve the whole county problem. But when we come up with solutions, like for example, the one that we're working with in the district clerk's office, there's been a problem since '98, and I think we're starting to get a hold of it, but we need to do all those things. I mean, between now, not in the next month, but I'm saying at least now we're trying to start in the right direction too. Anything else?
How long would it take you to look at those numbers or the things that we talked about?
It wouldn't take us long at all. We could go on a recess. We can come back in a few hours or something. That's what you'd like to do.
It's up to you. If I can find that.
You want to get recess and come back at 1?
Let's say so.
Matt, what's your idea on making up this deficit?
The court's already done a great job at cutting.
Yeah, but I say, what is your idea?
My idea? It's decisions and how
Can't
they
tell
want
me
to
you
get there.
don't have thoughts on this. I know you do.
Of course I have thoughts. Usually in something that's this, your hole is over 10%. About something like that, you're going to have to do both. You can't get it all through revenue, and you can't get it all through cutting. You would probably have to do both. And that's the suggestion so far. Now, once again, you don't have to plug it all this year because of the anticipated revenue coming next year. But we have to get somewhere that we're closer. Because this budget is a pretty skinny budget. There's no capital outlay, there's no raises, and that's not a long-term budget. But there's going to have to be capital, there's going to have to be raises at some point in time. So this can't be your target. These expenses are going to have to go up.
Yep.
All right, why don't we have a recess and come back at 1 o'clock? Give you plenty of time?
Okay.
Okay. All right, we'll come back at 1 o'clock. Thank you. It's 1:10.
Your number's going the wrong direction.
It is.
What was that number earlier? 1,086,000?
Yeah.
And that's putting in here what?
What do we put in?
Yeah, what did we cut or what did we put in?
We put in a 2% raise. We added the probation, the DWI personnel, one is close border. There was some little other things.
What was the cost of the 2%?
The 2% came out to $119.
And that was just no elected officials, no department heads.
No, it's correct.
Appointed or department heads? Appointed. You didn't cut any revenues, right?
Correct, no revenue.
One thing we didn't talk about earlier was the county engineer. That position needs to be put in here somewhere. There's lots of projects coming up, and we need somebody to manage and oversee them.
Commissioner, you think we should do it right now or do it like I don't think these projects will start probably till January, February.
I know, we still need to put the money in there. We can wait on doing it so we could calculate the salary based off of a January 1 start or something.
97.8 approximately total cost.
Huh?
97.8,
That's at a salary of what?
75.
97,800. That's total. That's
Correct.
what it's going to cost to do that.
So times 75.
But I think we can adjust it to do a start date in like January, February, so we don't have to eat the whole thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, February.
I still think we should look at cutting travel and training by 10% and office supplies by 5% on top of what we've already cut.
Judge.
Going back concerning the engineer, Matt,
Yes.
about how much money are we going to set aside for that?
Well, it would be 97.8 is the total salary. That'd be 75 plus benefits, and if you calculate it to starting like February, it would be 75% of that or something like that.
Okay, yeah, because we can establish a line of, for that position or position with $10,000-$15,000. I mean, we'd have to set everything
Because
aside.
we got that community center, we've got the Frontera project, and that sports complex comes, so we do need one. But I told Commissioner We don't need it right now, probably.
No.
Yeah, we can prorate it to calculate for
What we
that.
need right now is money.
Right. Okay, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make a comment that, one figure that I know how much I'm going to need is office supplies. And the reason for that is because this last year, we had a shortfall. I was aware of the shortfall. I had mentioned it at the last budget session. It was disregarded. So I had to make a budget amendment later in the year because we didn't have money to buy toner. Toner is a big item with us, and that's $600-700 a pop. The only thing that I asked for in this budget hearing was that we increase, if you remember, I made in this morning, the request that we increase $500 out of postage and $1,000 out of travel office supplies, and I would hate to see that cut 5%.
And I agree with you. I think there's some areas that the cut is gonna hurt, but I think there's some areas where the cut is not gonna hurt. And then I think we can come back and look at it as the year progresses, and if we need to adjust those numbers, we can adjust them. But I do know of departments that literally have a year or two worth of office supplies sitting in a cabinet and continue to spend down every penny that they've got. You know, when you talk about cuts, I mean, you look at the 83rd District Court, their travel and training budget for next year is $1,900. I think they're probably running on the bare minimums, but we have others that are way up there.
Okay, Matt, this new one you gave us, what is, tell us what the changes are on this one.
The grand total or just the changes?
Changes, Lisa?
The changes, we had the salary changes, and I don't have that list, I'll just go off the top of my head. We added the DUI, we added the court reporter, we had a net effect on the towers, so we didn't put that in there. We reduced precinct 2's travel and training by $4,500, got a text message on that. And we added 2% for raise, non-department head, non-elected official, and non-appointed.
You cut what by 45?
Travel training.
That's what only one.
Oh.
Okay.
Can I
But the net effect is, like you said, we went the other way. We're at 1.2 deficit now,
And
as
we're
opposed to at 1.048.
And if we take out what was the one we put in good analysis? We put a DWI person. That was a total of
23,715.
The total on that was more than that with.
Yeah.
Yeah, then you have to times that by 123, and then add in 5060 for insurance.
And by the way, those program fees, if you're indigent, you're not required to pay.
and that's what I was referring to. What was that number? The original one what?
23715.
No. The one, the short from the original, 1.104.
Oh, the original?
48. 1048861.
It's a net increase of 157.
No, that was salaries for 2%, was 119,
Roughly.
right?
So most of it was if we did a 2%, that was most of the cost.
So 1% would probably give you about 65.
Cool, lots of
60?
Now, Commissioner, I also ran your numbers, which were the comp time, on the leave report. We just took the leave report here. I know throughout the county we have 75 and we have 80. Because we're in time crunch, we just calculated 80. If you had 80 and you sold back your maximum of 80, and whoever did not have 80 and less, they sold back their max. But if we took that amount and we times it by their rate, we came out to about 74,000. Now what this does, it's still going to affect your cash. But what it will not do is it's not going to affect our net position, because will reduce our liability in our financials, but it will reduce our cash.
What I was trying to do there is for you to figure out if it would be better off going with this route or giving employees a raise. I mean, you know, whatever helps the budget. At this point, I mean, I know it's critical, the numbers, and we're just trying to figure out what the best route is. I mean,
Well, our net
helping
position.
them at the same time, you know.
Our net position is in less of a shortfall than our cash is. Because your net position is your net position, and that is what it is. And your cash, when your cash is low, then you just can't write checks. So,
Yeah.
This would cover anybody who has.
anybody who has.
Currently has it.
Currently has it, correct.
I mean, we've never done that before. And, I mean, I think it'd be a good idea.
80 hours, take over 80 hours?
Yeah, if you sold up to 80 hours. If you didn't have 80 hours, then of course you would sell the balance. If you had over 80 hours, you would want to go out, sell 80.
I have a question. On
Go
the
ahead.
travel and training, are we cutting everybody's travel and training?
I don't know.
Across the board.
Right now, it's been cut.
Across the board.
Okay, and what about the mandatory hours that we have to have?
There should still be enough money in there to meet the mandatory training requirements.
Are you talking about cutting it altogether?
No,
Or just-
No.
reducing it.
Reducing
Oh,
it.
okay, I'm sorry.
No.
I thought
I'm saying
you
a
said
10% cut
Okay, because he said
on top
80
of.
hours.
Oh,
So
no,
that's
no.
good.
No, what I'm saying is a 10% cut on travel and training on top of where we're at, plus a 5% cut on office supplies.
Okay.
I don't know what the net effect of that is, if there is, or what that net effect comes to. And I know you can't figure it out right this second. I mean, we could, we'd have to go through each line item.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't necessarily have to call a recess, we could probably calculate that here, just taking a break.
Rosa can do it.
Pardon?
Rosa can do it.
She can?
She's taking a nap.
So out of the total change is 157, you said 119 of that was
Salaries.
a pay increase, right?
Correct.
2%.
So the net effect of everything else is around $38,000 to $40,000, which most of that was in Judge Gonzalez's.
Correct.
So if we go back to what we originally had in his department,
Mm-hmm.
that would, really the only changes we make beyond that is the pay increases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How long would it take to look at the cuts we're talking about, travel and training and office supplies? I mean, I realize we just sit here and go through them.
Did we say here,
We don't have a total. Do we? We don't have a total of what
Of
we
travel
spend on
and
travel and, yeah. You just do it line
Inside
item by
this?
line item.
Correct.
You don't
No.
have totals.
Yes,
So-
you do. You gave them to me.
I did, but that's when I printed it out from Tyler, but in here we don't have line item quotes.
I have them,
No.
but they're old.
Okay,
How
well,
much
what
are
we
they
can do on
doing
that is we can reduce that by 5%, we can times that by 95.
Okay, so what is that number?
Okay.
But, you know, these are 2 budgets ago.
So there's really no secret there, you just take that 296, you times it by,
For which one?
right here, the 296.
96.
Oh,
That's your office supplies.
96
Right now, it is times 95%, so you would just times it by 90. And the difference would be that's your savings.
times 90%,
Correct.
which gives you 266, 88973.
Mhm.
It's about 30 grand.
Well, let's times it by 5.
You said 10.
Well, he times it by 10? Okay.
Well, I did 90% of that.
Okay, you did 90%, right. Now, what's currently inside this budget is
But that,
5%.
but that number is with the 5 cut already,
No,
or
that is
no
not.
cut?
That is not.
No cut.
So I still need to cut it more, so it's
No.
not 90, it would be 85.
No, I'm sorry. I would take the 296, I would times it by 95, and then I would times it by 90. That spread is your difference if you make the cut.
Okay.
Okay. That's,
295.
you're gonna take it, you're gonna times it by 95, and times it by 95 again.
And then times that times 95?
Correct.
No.
Yeah.
95? You're
Correct.
cutting an additional 10?
And the additional.
You want 10% off of this one.
Yeah. 10%, no. We did 5. I'm talking about another 10% off of what we already
Yeah,
cut.
this is the full load right here.
Yes.
You're gonna reduce it by 5 by times it by
So
95.
that's 180, and then if we cut 10% off of that, then I multiply that by 90%.
You're cutting 10% off
Yes.
of what we've already got?
Yes.
Oh, okay, well then, yeah. I thought you wanted 10% total.
No.
So you want 15% total.
Yeah, I just messed that up.
In reality, you're doing 15%, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it should be a, so I can take that total number and do 85%,
You,
right?
you could, but 95% is what is in the budget you're looking at right now.
Yeah, but on this one here, you could go.
Correct.
Let me see, 16,000.
So you're gonna take a total of 20% off?
15.
You took 5.
That's $28,076.69.
Right, if you're cutting from what's currently in this budget that's already been cut 5%, it'd be $28,000.
Yes, there's $28,000 cut. And then if we do, but you don't have that number in office supplies, do you?
I do.
Oh, you do?
See,
How about that?
you can do it.
You can do it. Get her done.
That actually was office supplies. Now let's go to travel and training.
Oh, well, then my number's wrong, because I was saying 5% on office. Not 20.
There's your travel and training.
Where?
What?
220,
249.
249,
630,
249,
630, 86.
630.86, and I need to take the 5% off of that?
Correct.
Um,
11.8, those got?
No, come over 1180, so
You're not?
Nope.
You come up with?
like 23.
You wanted a,
We're taking that number, taking 5% off,
and then you wanted a jet?
and then take another 10% off of whatever that was.
Okay.
So it's 249, 630.96 times 95% gives you 237, 149.32
Okay, then your 10% of that is gonna be.
times 90% gives you 213, 243.39. Then you subtract those two, 237.
$3,715, what I come up with.
Okay.
But then the other one is incorrect.
Yeah, we're gonna redo this one.
Yep. What was the original number?
296544.
Slow down
96,
296.
544,
544.
16.
196 times 95% is 280, 66.95 times 95%. Oh, I messed that up.
You should be around 14,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
296,
It's about 14, somewhere right in there. 296,
544,
544
14.
times 95%. Gives you 280. And then you multiply that times 95%. Gives you 266. Yep. 14,038, more or less. Plus the 23.7. It's a total of 37,753 overall.
On that chart up there, fire department, EMS, $60,000 worth of supplies?
Yes, that's what it says.
Well, they have fancy supplies.
Well,
Those are some great pens. No, he probably, he's probably working, something's worked in there with the fire trucks, I would imagine. I have no idea.
I don't think it's fuel and everything involved in this. It's just supplies. I mean, what kind of supplies are we talking about?
I don't know, we'd have to crack it open and see.
I think we should at least cut those two. And then, I think you gotta start cutting the rest of it. I don't know if we can get the raise to fit in there or not.
I said 1%, not 2%.
Yeah. At a 1%.
Instead of 1%, it's 2%. Instead of a 2% raise, 1% raise.
Yeah,
figure that.
1% raise on that.
In other words, instead of 119 on the raises, be 60.
Okay, so our 1.2 deficit, you just cut 37, so we're minus 37.
Okay, but I think we need to go in and look at that DWI court and cut that position back out. I don't think it's gonna fit.
Which position? Just the DW, just the 2375? Okay, so we'll just cut that.
That's 20, well, it's more than 23.
Well, right now it's 23,715. 1, 2, 3. 60. Roughly 34,200.
34,200. So that's 70,000 we're cutting right there.
And if you go with the 1%, you cut 60,000.
Okay, there's another 60. Keep it coming. What else we got?
Keep it coming.
Okay.
And what else did we add back in there? Oh, you gotta add back that engineer though, all that cost.
Yeah, that was more.
But you told us the cost of that was 97.8?
Yeah, if he was hired for the full year.
So if you take the 97.8 and do it, so you do it by 6 months?
Cut it in half. 48, 5.
Be 48.9. Instead of
How much?
48.9 more or less.
Half a year.
You did half a year. And if we decide not to fill it, we decide not to fill it. I think the position needs to be there.
If engineer position, we're talking full-time, Monday to Friday, 8 to 5.
Okay, so we're 1.1. Right?
So we took it from 1.2 to 1.1.
Yeah, we started 1.2. We took out travel and training for 37,000, 34 for the DUI, 1% on the 60. We added in the engineer for 49, now we're 1.1.
And we were at 1,040,000 something. So
Before
we increased
everything-
it by $100,000.
Before everything started happening?
Yep, about 100,000.
60.
60,000. Now, did you go in there and readjust that, like we talked about on the interest and sinking, and put the line of credit back in,
No, line of credit is not in there.
which comes to $392,000 if you put it in there to draw the ending balance on interest and sinking to 1.2, which is 1 year worth of revenue, 1 year worth of expenditures.
Yeah, I would just feel more comfortable just to reduce the cents.
If you would what?
Reduce the cents.
Well, you could do it that way.
Okay, thank you.
But what would you have, but then, what is the current?
411?
So to get that 300,000, we would have to reduce it by, was it 220 per penny more or less?
More or less. Well, less. Let's say 200.
200?
Yeah.
So that'd be a penny and a half.
Roughly.
So you'd take it down to basically 2, a little bit less than 2.
I have a calculator. Let me,
Yeah. Go ahead.
before I quote you. Two six.
With the understanding that next year we have to fix it?
Yeah, there would be no other way.
Huh?
There would be no other way, because we do have requirements that...
Bonding requirements.
Hmm?
Yeah, we have bonding requirements.
Correct.
So then that would raise revenues in the general fund by that $300 and something thousand, right?
That would.
If you
But-
move the pennies.
If you move the pennies, that would raise it, but I don't know if that gives you a false sense of revenue.
That's a complete false sense of revenue.
Okay.
But you don't want to do it the other way. Which I understand, but yeah, that or we just take all the raises completely out and make the cuts and. I don't think the engineer is something you can cut. I think we gotta have that position. We have continually spent money trying to keep these projects in line, and it ends up costing us more money not having somebody controlling them and being in charge of them. And, you know, all of that stuff needs to come under the control of the court and somebody that we have. And I'm okay with doing it a half a year, but I personally would prefer that the person get on board now, but I understand the budgetary restraints that go with that. Either that or you take it out and we relook at it in January and add the position.
I feel more comfortable doing that then.
So do I. I think we need to just
I
wait
guess.
and look at it again in January. with the engineer.
So are we gonna be able to handle all of these projects we have and stay on top of them?
Well, at this point, I don't think we can handle them, but we're not really gonna start till January.
No, I mean, the Frontier project is going on right now. The community center expansion is going on right now. Those are projects that we gotta get fixed and cleaned up here in the next few months, unless we're just gonna stop them all until January or February.
Look, these projects are draining us, just like this water line.
Not all of them.
It's draining us.
It's gonna end up costing us money. I mean, it's up to the court. If they wanna wait, we'll wait, but, or just take it completely out and then we'll go from there. At some point, we gotta have that discussion.
Right, and you did bring up kind of a good suggestion. What if all open positions were frozen for a
That's
quarter?
another option. We need to start looking at freezing positions, freezing expenditures, those types of things.
What do you mean by freezing positions?
Will there be any exceptions? I've got some deputy positions that are vacant.
There would be a one-by-one exception before the court.
Okay.
Those are all things we gotta look at. I mean, that's outside the bounds of this budget. We would have to adopt the budget and then implement a freeze to do it.
Now, if you did lower INS, that's gonna lower our balance, of course.
No, I understand. It's the same as doing the line of credit. It's the same number
Right.
either way.
But I guess what I'm getting at is, the health to take on another tax note to pay for Ventura.
Yep. Yeah, it puts you in a bind. So, I'd be more inclined to start cutting than increasing. You don't have the revenue in there to take on a tax note if you do that.
The revenue or the fund balance?
Well, you'd have to use more of your fund balance to cover that cost.
Correct. And if we lower it, then we'll have less of a fund balance to facilitate that payment.
I personally think those other cuts need to be made in travel and training and office supplies. Then we can, I guess, cut everything else out of there and leave it the way it is. When we look at it, we can give non-elected and appointed officials pay raises throughout the year. Counselor?
Nope.
Non-elected?
Oh, non-elected.
Non-elected
Yes.
and non-appointed officials.
I'm thinking elected.
Yeah, no. Non-elected and non-appointed officials.
Yes, you can.
We can give them throughout the year without having to go through the
If it's systematic and it's for,
Yeah.
and it's not,
Yes.
What am I saying? If it goes
If
forward.
it's not
and
selective,
No, if it goes forward and not back.
yes.
Can't pay them for work they already did.
No, I understand that.
What do y'all think on that comp time?
Well, I mean, you can give everybody 1% at 60-something, you give some people something at 70-something. Not everybody has comp time, I'm assuming.
Yeah, correct.
So not everybody's gonna get something. I mean, I like his idea, but just not everybody gets something out of it.
Correct. It would,
And
You know-
it's gonna cost you 70 versus 60. $60. And at least everybody gets something. I mean, 1%'s not a lot if you're making $21,000, but
correct, it's not, but the comp time tends to reward people who have been here longer or who have accumulated the comp time, as opposed to someone who was just hired last year and gets the same raise as someone who's here for 15.
and the cost of that was 75? Estimated, because you've got you just calculate it based off of that number, or do you just use the actual number that was in there of comp time that we have out?
Okay, I'm sorry, what's the question?
The number you came up with is 75. Is that based off of just what is actually there in comp time? You
Correct.
said something about up to 80.
Yeah, updating, like, for example, this one, 86. We want to calculate on 80 hours.
Okay.
That's why it's 11.
Okay.
Instead of
So the 75 is actually what it is. Anybody above 80 didn't get any of the rest of it. They just got we shouldn't have many at 80, do we? I would assume a lot of them are in the sheriff's department.
Well, we've got a couple that are probably, higher than that. I know we've got one at 300, we're working on, I've got one at 200 plus, and that's probably 80 to 100 range. But we're having problems with dispatchers. We have 3 vacancies right now, so our people are working a lot of right now.
Are we just having a hard time filling them, or?
Have a hard time keeping them.
You can find them, you just can't keep them.
Can't keep them.
And that,
They have a license, they have to get a license in the year.
they get offered a better job somewhere,
Or they can't get a license.
I can't get a
or they
license.
can't get a license.
There was no license before, so they don't need the license.
Now, there's a state test and a state license that they have to get.
So if we took, what was that number, 75?
75. Now, we would probably, not want to make this a payout right away. That would not be one.
It would be one or the other. I mean, we pay them comp time and we give them a raise, but we don't give them a raise, we pay them comp time. Whoever qualifies for those benefits.
I don't think you can pick and choose the raise. I mean, either they have the comp time, they get paid the comp time, or we give everybody a raise. It's one of the two.
Whatever raise that.
Huh?
What?
No,
Oh, okay.
no, you can wait till January if you do it whenever.
Something, right. So we're 1.1.
Well,
Or is that
you're
another
You're gonna be
70?
less than that.
That puts us at 1.2.
Let's take in
Well,
the
I'm
cuts.
sorry.
No.
You're right. We'll take out the 1% at 60, we'll add in the 75, so it's a net effect of 15. So,
You take it all out, and then later on, we decide to do it.
on the comp time? Okay, we can do that.
If the revenue's available,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Take the engineer out, do the existing cuts, that then should take you back down to something.
Take the engineer out as well?
Well, I think that's what we decided.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we need him in January.
Okay. So we're basically back to kind of where we started.
Well, it should be less than when you started.
Yeah, about what, 30,000? Yeah.
Well, we took everything out, the only thing that's left in there that we changed was, the increase on the court reporter from the 55 to the
64.
60, I think 64.
Yeah, 62, right? 62.
I think it needs to be 60, 62. But I mean, we have this, is it we just can't find one, or?
Airport reporter. He had 3 applicants. One wanted to travel, and then the other 2, one was from Dallas. I sent him the resumes, and I don't know if he reached out to them.
So we're ready to take it at 55.
Well, they were?
But he said that he didn't have to hire who he didn't want.
Well, nobody's telling them who to hire or who not to hire, we're just setting a salary. We have the same argument with everybody else. I don't, cut it back, leave it the way it is. I didn't realize we did.
Yeah, 3.
He did.
Leave it the way it is. If you have it.
The old court reporter moved back to Del Rio.
Patty, yes.
Who's that lady, right?
Patty, yes. So I'm not
She's
sure
living here.
if she's expected a job. I don't know. What if she's, race, I don't know. I just don't know why she would move back.
She had moved to McAllen, then she came back, right?
McAllen Sanitary.
Yeah.
She was doing court reporting for other agencies, but now she said she moved back here.
I think that the problem that he was having is that the court reporter, he hires, let's say he hires at 52 or 55, finds out that the other ones are getting 63, they might leave. That was the problem he was having.
Oh, well, that argument can be made in every department in this county. I thought we just couldn't find anybody. And leave it where it's at. If we have applicants, we have applicants.
Okay. Now, when you say we'll come back and we'll look at it in the middle of the year, the engineer or the payouts, what are we expecting that would change?
We'll see what our revenues really look like. I mean, y'all had a whole discussion this morning about additional revenues we don't think we're gonna, and some of these numbers aren't gonna come in. I think if you do some freezing and some other things, I think there's some savings in there. We're not gonna get to the zero, I understand. To get to the zero means we don't look at anything ever. We just cut. We do a cut like we're talking about, then we do a freeze across the board for the next 4 months, and then we look at it. That'll get you back to your zero. But I think we've all agreed we're not gonna fix it all this year.
Right.
We have to start that process.
Right, we know that, but we also know on both extremes, you cannot cut your way to prosperity, just like you can't raise taxes into prosperity.
No, I understand, but I also know that there are places that we have too much money put, and I think we all understand that. There are places that could be cut. You know, there is money being spent that probably doesn't have to be spent, and then there's other locations where they need more money.
My fear in looking at this is it is a budget without pay raises. It's a budget without capital outlay, which cannot continue in perpetuity. It can continue for a few years, but not forever.
For 1 year.
Okay.
Don't get ambitious.
Okay. It cannot continue. And then we do get the increased revenue from the tax.
Yeah, but that's a
increase.
part-time revenue increase.
Right. So I'd hate to balance the budget just on that, and then that's going to deteriorate year after year.
No, you can't come back next year and use up the supposed $1 million that we're gonna make in that wind farm, which I'm not convinced that's what the number is, but it is what it is. That depreciates out at 20-30% a year.
Well, not quite that fast, but it will depreciate. And if you set up your expenses to match that revenue, it's going to depreciate every year, then your expenses are also going to have to go down every year, which, when you're increasing capital outlay and you're increasing salaries, that's the challenge. So it might be best to set what that proposed value is going to be in 5 years and just use that for year 1 through 5 and have that extra money. We do have our 216 is callable. We can apply it to the 216, or we can put it away for, allot it for, into a capital outlay fund or
No,
something.
I agree with you. You
That's
can't,
just
you can't
that.
spend that additional revenue except for things that are capital outlay that aren't ongoing expenditures.
Correct.
But, you know, we don't have a 5-year budget process. We need a 5-year budget process, but we don't have a 5-year budget process that projects out those revenues. And you have to project that growth. This is the first year, I think, most taxing entities in this community have seen what has happened in this effective rate issue. You know, it's the first time we're school district in the same shape. Their effective rate is actually higher than their current rate.
And what's their solution?
They're adopting their current rate.
Current or effective?
Current.
Current? They're below? And they're going to stay below? Okay.
Yeah, but they have a $23 million fund balance too, so. You know, I mean, that's why we used to freeze this budget in the past to our expenditures have to keep our ongoing expenditures have to keep up with our revenue. Capital is a whole separate issue. We don't have a capital equipment replacement program. We don't have that, so we can budget and deal with that issue. And I agree with you, any of those additional revenues need to go to that, not to pay raises, not to increase. But for the last several years, we have given and given and given and given and given. And unfortunately, for the next several years, we're probably not going to be able to give. But I also have a lot of faith in our department heads' ability to find ways to generate revenue. Huh?
You have faith in us.
Now, last year, when I was here, sitting over there, I kept hearing that this year was going to be a tough year. That this year was going to be a tough year. And it's a tough year. And, you know, we just didn't have it there to bring over anymore.
You know, we've been balancing our budget off of fund balances for the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years. You know.
And this is where we are.
Yes, I think for the last 3 budget cycles, I think I've found it. You know, we're eventually going to find ourselves without a fund balance to balance the budget. We have increased no revenues, but we have continued to spend. And this is where we're at. But I'm not prepared to do a tax increase until I know for sure we've cut what needs to be cut and things are where they need to be. I mean, I can look at this line item by line item and I guarantee you there's still cuts in here. And I guarantee you what will happen with the cuts that we're making is everybody will come back and start doing budget amendments to get things in line, and we'll get a pretty good idea of what that real number is.
That you are absolutely right. That is one good way to get to where people need to be on their line items. As you cut it to where they can make it to 9 months, in those last quarter, everything comes to court. In the following year, you know where the actual number is.
But how are we gonna pay for those last 3 months? If the budget is calculating what you're gonna spend in 9, and it's a 12-month budget, where do you get the money for the last 3 months?
We just have to dip into fund balance.
What fund balance?
Well, what you end up doing is you find out that
No, see?
we didn't use as much in one of these other line items, and we move it into a different line item.
You amend the budget and move money forward. If you have money in paving and you run out of operating, well, you move a little.
Yeah.
Just to finish the year, but I think it could work. I mean, for a lot of us, and that way, the following year, we're gonna know where we stand with the money.
Matt, how were these figures arrived at, like on the road and bridge expenditures?
Okay. What page, Commissioner?
Page 109. 40% decrease in paving on precinct 1.
109?
Correct.
Yeah. What that is, on that deal, is we took the TERS out and we reallocated it to precinct 1, 2, and 3 in accordance to the, how it's more than likely supposed to be set up.
It wasn't a cut. The money was, when we created the TRIZ, it says you use it in the areas where the TRIZ is created. We divided it up and have used it in different areas.
Divided it up how?
The way the TRIZ is created, the statute says you can utilize the money within the bounds of where the TRIZ is created. Well, last year, we just divided it amongst all 4 precincts, but the TRIZ was actually created along the pipeline, which only falls between precinct 2 and 3. And we were allocating funds in areas that the TRIZ didn't exist in.
Commissioner Orloff, of course, all your roads are paved. You really don't need any paving.
So if we took all of that out plus the cuts, then we would actually have a savings. If we didn't add any of the stuff we just talked about, which I guess we assume we're not adding, and then took the $37,000 from cuts.
37 in cuts. Can you refresh my memory on that? The travel and training office?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is 37.
Okay, 37, and then,
Put everything back the way it was originally. And you just do that cut, and that was it.
and the DWI?
But it just don't matter. If we don't have the money, we don't have the money. There's no guarantee of the revenue.
Okay. And then
If there's a guarantee of the revenue, I don't mind doing it, but I don't know that we can guarantee the revenue. If you can't charge for indigent, I'm assuming probably most of it is indigent.
Anybody with a court-appointed attorney is automatically indigent. If they qualify for a court-appointed attorney throughout the proceedings, they're considered indigent.
Which is most of the people in that program. So there would be little to no revenue.
The other change in the law for us is that I can challenge any affidavit of indigency, which I do automatically. Because later, if it's found that the person can pay, I'm able to collect. Well, that changed this year. No more.
Now you can't challenge it.
No.
Yeah, because you can claim situational indigency where you just don't have the money now. And so later on, they'll come and, like in divorces,
Yeah.
you know, wife's living without income, and later on, she can pay the court costs, but you can't do that anymore.
Another one of those unfunded mandates.
Amongst the list of.
So they're gonna expect all the counties to fund all the court stuff and no ability to generate revenue to cover it.
It's good for the state, right?
I guess it is if you're sitting in Austin, it's not so good if you're sitting down there.
Yeah.
And then what about the issue on them charging now for DPS charging for blood works and all those?
That went away.
Did they?
Yeah, the sheriffs all started threatening to charge Texas for all the fees that we do. And the governor wrote a letter to Director McCall requesting that he rescind that, and he did.
Okay. It sounds to me like you just cut everything back out and then cut the additional something, and that's where we're at.
We did. Here's where we started today.
So if you cut
So really, the net effect is going to be $37,000 out of TNT in office, because the DUI is not in there, that the raises are not in there.
So it takes you down to
The engineer is not in there, so all that,
$1,010,000
there we go.
that you're balancing through bringing in a beginning cash balance of 910.
Correct.
And what was the other part that maybe that, oh, you're using up part of your interest and sinking fund money.
Correct, 331.
And that leaves you an ending fund balance of $192,000 in the general fund.
Correct.
And it leaves you an ending balance of 1.59 in the interest and sinking.
Correct.
That's where the additional money comes from, Councilor.
From where?
That you can utilize the $192,000 is your ending cash balance. That's the only additional money we have to play.
But where does that come from? It's just,
Well, your revenues and expenditures
Okay.
will leave you at the end of the year $192,000. That's the only place you can get it from.
but we're not touching the interest and sinking.
Correct. The only way that I feel comfortable with it is just reducing the pennies, because if you reduce the pennies, then the revenue from the tax revenue doesn't go in there. It goes to general fund.
So when you're reducing the pennies, you have to talk second grade loan.
Okay, we reduce the amount of money coming into interest and sinking through property taxes. And if we reduce it on interest and sinking, it'll stay in general fund. So it'll just stay in general fund as opposed to going interest and sinking and coming back to general. It would just stay in general fund. It's probably the cleanest way to do it. So that's where we're at.
Okay.
Once again, the fear is appraisals are up next year, and that goes to fill up $1 million hole. And that's all it does. No capital, no pay raises, no projects. That's the big fear. That's something we have to tackle.
What?
That's the fear, the $1 million. Increased revenues will come in through appraisals, and that's all it does. It just balances the budget. And there's no room for capital, there's no room for salary raises, there's no room for projects. It just pays the bills. So we're current. Does nothing to increase fund balance, to enable more projects, more grants, because you've got to have the fund balance to facilitate the grants, which exchange county dollars for federal and state dollars.
So how does that have an effect on our existing grants?
No, not right now, because we still have enough actual cash to continue to pay the bills that we're paying with grants to get reimbursed on.
Through the new fiscal year.
Correct.
You need an unrestricted,
Especially for the tires.
School money, grant money, don't forget.
you need an unrestricted cash reserve that can be used to fund that.
To fund the grants, right. And that is something that we also need to look at, is creating an expense account for the grants, so the grants no longer run through the departmental account.
I agree.
Now, when we do that, we can offset it with the revenue. It's just the revenues will not come in that fiscal year, but the revenues will be counted that fiscal year. It's just...
I mean, the revenues won't come in part of it, do they?
Well,
You get a
correct.
reimbursement.
We're going to have 1 month where they do not, but they will still be counted as if...
So you have to have enough cash reserves to cover that 30-day period at the end of the year.
Correct. Now, that's if they were evenly spaced out throughout the year, which we know they're not going to be, because there's equipment, there's autos. Sometimes we have large items that come out of there. It's not even throughout the year, which would be nice if it was, but it's not.
And then we need a capital equipment replacement program countywide too, so we know what those ongoing costs are. So we know that every 5 years we buy vehicles for the sheriff, or whatever the number is, whatever the time frame is of what that cost is. You know, I think over the next year we have to work on a capital equipment replacement program and know what that funding is over the next 5 or 10 years or however long it is. Because at some point, you're right, we have to fix that. But it's hard to fix that when you don't know what that is. You know, we know the sheriff comes and asks us every year for vehicles, but what is the real ongoing of that? Is it every 3 years we replace 5? Is it every 5 years we replace 10? Is it, you know, what is that real? In his department, then we have every other department in the county. You know, in our departments, those are big ticket items when we replace a piece of equipment. They're not cheap. They're $400,000 a pop.
And that's why they're coming through the tax now.
Yep.
Which is 8 years long.
Yeah, so, you know, and most of that equipment, at least the stuff that I have, 8 years is not an issue. It's going to last the 8 years, so it's not a big issue. But there are some cases where we're buying equipment and financing it for 7 or 8 years, and it really only lasts 3 or 4.
Which is not good
practice. That's not, but there's no system, so I think over the next year, we need to spend some time coming up with that, so that as we go into the next budget cycle, we know what that is.
Chief Spillman, about these vehicles, what about the vehicles that's confiscated by the sheriff's department? Can those be, like, given to department heads to, I know...
We haven't seized any vehicles.
Y'all don't seize vehicles?
It's very complicated, and mainly it's narcotics, and we just haven't had narcotic seizures. That's what we can seize a vehicle for, narcotics.
Okay,
We haven't had any significant narcotic seizures in the last several years.
So the sheriff's department can't get those from like the border patrol?
No,
or
those
the
would be
federals?
something that would have to be DAG, but we're even then, we're not catching a lot of vehicles that, we're just not catching the vehicles that we could even DAG against and try to get money proceeds from that. It's just not happening. And it's not just happening, not just with us, it's just not happening in Del Rio, period.
How about Kenny County? Until we solve the drug problem?
No.
I figured y'all were catching a lot of vehicles and...
No, we're not. And so to be able to do that, to be able to forfeit a vehicle, it's got to meet certain criteria. And for state agencies, it's mainly narcotics. Now, when you start working on the task forces with the federal government, immigration does have a place in there. And we've got task force officers assigned to ICE and task force officers assigned to DEA. But in the last 6 months that I've been there, there's been nothing significant that would even meet that criteria. But if you wanted to go hypothetically, it depends on the quality of the vehicle. If the vehicle is a piece of junk, most likely it's going to get sold at auction, and we would get a percentage of that revenue based on our level of participation. If the vehicle was a high quality, brand new vehicle, even Border Patrol doesn't seize vehicles because now, it used to be that when you seized them, it didn't matter if it was a lien. The vehicle was yours. If you seized it, it was forfeited. Now, what has to happen is if there's a lien, that lien has to be paid off. That has to be paid off. And so if there's really not, it's not that beneficial anymore the way it was 10, 20 years ago.
You gotta pay for it.
You gotta pay for it. If that makes sense.
That makes sense, but I'd like to see, if it was possible, I'd like to see them go to these department heads as well.
Well, I think if it was possible, we would look at that. Our investigators would be driving them. Any place that we could put them, we would put them, we would utilize them.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'd like to see y'all look at a equipment replacement program, so when we start selling these, or getting rid of them, or deciding to keep them for somebody else's use, they're not wore completely out. The vehicle's yard right.
yeah, and right now, we've got vehicles that are 10 years old in the fleet, actively being used every day. And for a 10-year-old vehicle that's being utilized in patrol function, there's liability issues there, because if those things get into wrecks, they're just not of the level that, our guys put a lot of miles on. Our transport put a lot of miles on.
Well,
Half
when you
our
get a
fleet
new,
right now has over
when you get a new one, you could put our county attorney in one of your police vehicles and
Well, we are looking at deadline.
Limited skills, I can only drive one.
We are looking at, in the next 6 months, we'll probably be deadline anywhere between 2 to 5.
Y'all track your cost per vehicle, your repairs and cost and
It's
all
all
that?
documented. Yeah. That has the bearing when it comes to replacing one. Because you could have, I've got a vehicle that's in really, really good shape, 4-wheel drive vehicle, that was a Comstock assigned truck. It's got 160-something thousand miles on it, but that truck is mechanically sound.
Mhm.
So we keep that vehicle. Whereas you might have a vehicle that's got 115,000, but it's in the shop all the time. And you have to come to a line, okay, which is better for us to keep? Well, obviously the ones that it's running well and it's being maintained well.
But when y'all buy a new vehicle, it costs X amount of dollars.
Yeah, and you know, I gave you that replacement plan, and I gave you 60,000. You have to look at what's going into patrol, what's going into CID or investigations, what's going to bailiffs. The most expensive vehicle is patrol,
Mhm.
and it's because of all the equipment that's required. When you buy that same vehicle for CID or that same vehicle for bailiffs, you don't have to have all that required equipment in there, so there's a savings.
Which required one?
Well, you have to have the radars, you have to have the cameras.
You can't just take them out of the one we just got rid of?
You can, but here again, if that vehicle's 8, 9 years old, sometimes the life expectancy on those cameras are not good.
So when we're replacing a vehicle, we're replacing everything with it.
We are.
Light bars,
Yeah.
radars, every single thing, radios,
We
everything.
buy them equipment.
And then all the stuff y'all take out of those, what happens to that?
Some of it is reused. We do reuse some of it, and we try to save money where we can.
Mhm.
But a lot of it is excess that needs to be disposed of.
Anything
Okay,
else?
well, so we reduce it by the 37. Okay, now, how do we proceed? Just reduce it by 37?
Know that you're wanting us to do a tax increase.
No, well, I want us to get closer to balance, so that next year.
Okay, so how do we get closer to balance?
Well, unless we have another $500,000 worth of cuts, I don't know.
So that's what I'm saying, a tax increase.
This might sound like a joke here, but how about cutting the maintenance department? They got $1 million in operating.
I think as part of this process, all of those need to come under the control of this court and managed by this court.
What, all of what?
All non-precinct related things. Building maintenance, fairgrounds, parks, anything non-precinct related need to come under the control of this court.
Okay, a little lost on that. Can you extrapolate a little bit?
All of those items that need to come under the control of this court, like he's talking about, building maintenance, all those kinds of things, they need to be under the control of this court, period.
Okay, departments?
Those departments need to be under the control of this court. You know, we're talking about $1 million or whatever the number is. I haven't looked at the exact number, but we need to know what those expenditures are. And we can't do it if we don't have control over those. We don't control any of those departments.
Parks and
Building
Rec.
maintenance, parks, none of that. We don't control any of it. We have no idea what it is.
Okay.
It's gonna take a separate agenda item. Because you're not just moving the money, you're moving the responsibilities.
Yeah, so that's
I think Mr. Soto wanted, before we continue, Mr. Soto, you have something to say about budget?
Yes, Judge, I just wanted to follow up on our request. We requested an additional $50,000 for our juvenile detention center. I understand everybody's situation, but we're basically spending more than what we're taking in. How have we been able to survive in the past? We've depended on fees we generate through detention contractors. Those are down drastically because of lack of activity, like Mr. Chief Spillman was saying. Our neighbor down in Eagle Pass used to detain a lot of these drug cases that were coming through the area. That's not happening right now. The state has cut funds from our department or our state grants for the last 4 years. So basically, we're in a situation where if something doesn't change, we need some additional monies or think about shutting that operation down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Matt.
See, the reason for that,
we have
because
that.
as you know, September's coming around the corner, and if we are gonna increase, we're gonna have to have 2 more hearings. So that's the only reason that, look like we're trying to, put a quicker pace on this
What are you
process.
proposing for an increase?
What am I proposing? That decision's up to the court.
Well,
What I
the
would like to-
decision's up to the court. What are you wanting us to do?
What I would like to see is a deficit of around 500. That would make me a little
So
bit.
you're talking about raising taxes by 2 cents, or 1.5 cents? About 2 cents.
That brings the deficit to about $500,000, and that's what would make me comfortable, considering what is up the road in 2 years.
And you're comfortable with this budget that all the cuts that need to be made are made? All the special funds are where they need to be, or we got control of all the stuff?
No, but as we just cut travel and training, another 10%, we cut office another 5%. The cutting is good to reduce the excess, but the amount that's there is,
I don't know.
No, because all your money is tied up in payroll. Until you start cutting on that end, you're not gonna cut enough out of this budget. That's what we're going to cut.
correct. Payroll is running about 61%. Now, that's, of course, once again, that's a formula. How do you reduce that formula? Where you can reduce salaries, or you can reduce your total expenses, because it's salaries divided by total
Well,
expenses.
I've made this comment for the last 3 years, is that we need to look at retirement incentive program. You have a $3 million difference between starting pay, base pays, and current pay. There's $3 million difference in those deals.
And then we'll
You
get
know, along with all the other cuts, those are areas you gotta look at too. You know, departments have to start looking at technology to replace personnel. But you're talking about, it's almost $3 million difference.
if those positions can get filled at that price, yes.
That's a good question. Then if you're not, then we need to move all of our base pays to our current pay and realize that that is the payroll of Valverde County.
Yeah, we really need to stick to those base pays.
You know,
Okay.
I mean, you cut in the places, and yes, at some point we have to look at revenues, but I'm still not convinced you're there. I think there's still places that you can adjust and deal with this. You know, when 61% of your entire budget is personnel, there's only one place to go.
That is high, but that once again.
Well, and then, okay, let's say 55%.
And we have to realize that because of the formula, there's two variables involved. There's the salaries, and then there's the total expenditures. If you keep salaries the same, and you raise total expenditures, well then, automatically, by not increasing salaries or decreasing them, the ratio goes down.
Yes, so I understand.
It just depends on
If
what
we
side of the
raise
formula
taxes
you
another 3 or 4 or 5 cents, that ratio's gonna change. And you raise your expenditures up
correct.
and all that. I mean, I understand that, but right now where we're sitting, it's approximately 60% of our entire budget is personnel.
Correct.
And then the question gets to is, what do we start looking at there? When you have a $3 million difference between starting and current pay. Lots of companies and lots of cities and lots of counties go out and look at retirement incentives and those types of things to try to narrow those gaps. And it's something that we need to look at. It may not work, but it doesn't hurt to look at it.
Okay. You can definitely look at something like that.
But what I'm understanding, we're in the essence of time, we need to decide if we're going to raise taxes or not because of the public hearings, right?
Correct.
I mean, that's up to the court. I'm not prepared to vote for a tax increase.
I'm not either, but
I think there's a lot of other places we can deal with these issues.
But if at the end you want to raise it, it's a matter of time. We need to publish it. We need to have public hearings. And if we don't do that,
Well, it's gonna be up to us, Judge.
that's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, it's a matter of time.
Yeah.
What are the public hearing requirements? 2 days?
I don't have
that off the top of my head, but I believe you're right. But I do know 2 and 3 can be pretty close together. Almost, it might even be a day apart. I'll have to check at that.
And you have to publish it in the newspaper, and then have it after you publish it.
I'm just not convinced.
How much more cutting would you like to see before we get to the convinced?
Okay, why don't we take a 10-minute break and think about that?
Okay.
10-minute break.
All right.
10 minutes, we'll have the answer.
Okay.
Well, sorry, Matt. Good find. We'll have another budget workshop next week sometime.
Next week? Okay, that'll work.
And you'll adjust all of that for the next one, whatever changes we just made.
Which was very few.
I understand, but
Right,
it's still,
37,000.
still a cut. Come
Okay,
on,
no,
Dave,
sure.
Give us something.
But it was the,
But
it was-
37,000 comes, you were going to reiterate, yeah.
correct, it was a 37,000, which was a combination of the extra 10% in travel and training and 5% in office supplies.
Yes.
Okay. And,
And take all the rest of the stuff.
right, the personnel in DWI was not in here, so it will not be included. The 1% was not in here, so will not be included. The engineer was not in here, so will not be included. So that's it. That's,
Goes back to where it was at.
the total report goes back down? Okay.
Back to where it originally was, and,
52.
the 40-something comes out.
52 something.
Yeah,
46.
What is expected retirement
yes, 46 and 23.
this coming year?
Okay. All right. Did you get that, Matt?
Got it.
Okay. Judge Cole, you make a question?
Which Monday?
Okay.
When is our next budget
Oh, I
workshop?
don't know, he said one next week, I don't know that we have one, I don't know.
No, I don't have one planned yet.
Okay. Well, some Mondays because it's Labor Day weekend.
No, I said maybe next week, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Because I know Monday's Labor Day, so.
Yeah, I'm not coming over.
Probably on Wednesday.
I could, but I'm not.
Okay. Did you finish, Matt?
I did.
Okay. Judge, you had a question?
I just have a comment. Something I'd like you to just take a look at. When you apparently at your TAC meeting, you got real familiar with indigency and its effect on your county. I want you to look at something else just in another way. If a person is driving while they're intoxicated and they are arrested, they come before the magistrate, and we have to ask them if they're employed. We have to ask them how much money they make. And as the counselor pointed out,
We have to ask them if they need a court-appointed attorney. All this is geared to not putting people in what is called the federal prison. So, you know, maybe, first of all, they don't have the money to bond out. Well, I don't have a job, I don't have any way to do this. We're going to be doing more and more PR bonds, which has nothing to do with the county revenue. But where it goes with that is we're going to be doing a lot of low bonds, PR bonds, and then comes the issue of the ignition interlock device. The ignition interlock device is expensive. I believe it's around $150 to $200 a month, plus calibration fees and some other things that they have to pay. What happens to the indigent person? You're not going to pay that. They can't. They're indigent. So now we can't make them pay a fine because they're indigent. You can't put an ignition interlock on because they're indigent and they can't pay that. Now we have no DWI court, as I understand it, or whatever you're doing to cut back that service. So what do you think the DWI drivers are going to be doing? There's no repercussion. It doesn't cost any money. You know, if it becomes a serious matter, they might possibly go to jail. But how many years is it going to take before somebody goes to jail? How many DWIs have only been arrested because they've only been drinking this one time? Do you believe that? Not a chance. It's the first time they got caught, not the first time they were drinking and driving. We've got to think about protecting our citizens. And sometimes it's a far reach, but if you don't have some repercussion on DWIs, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And as Mr. Spillman and I were talking a minute ago, you know, there's going to be fatalities. And I know that what you do with the DWI court may not change the fatalities. I know there's nothing you can do about the indigent situation in the JP courts. But think about the safety of our community when you're making these cuts. You know, we all go to the store, we go to the gas station. Bread costs more than it did last time. What do? Stop eating bread? No, you just grumble about it because it costs a quarter more and you buy it and you get over it. Gasoline's the same way. You know, other services that we got are increasing. The county has to buy services in order to produce services to our citizens. You know, the county is a business too. And, you know, I don't think, my personal opinion, that it is going to be a major sin if you have to raise taxes. You've got to operate the county, and if it takes a tax raise, well, you know what? It's just going to take a tax raise. But, you know, you've got to keep up the services. What do you think people are going to say when you cannot pave any roads, when you cannot do the services that you need, when Mr. Cerny doesn't have people to go check on wells that may be contaminated, when we don't have any travel and training money to learn how to do our jobs, to do them well, so that we can serve our communities the best way. You know, you talk about office supplies. You know, because one closet was full of 2 years' worth of office supplies, does that mean everybody else is? No. There are other things to look at, and I would appreciate it if you could look at the big picture and remember that we're here to serve the citizens, and that's what we need to do. And the citizens, I don't believe, expect anything free. I think what they expect is service.
I wish you would have made that speech at the legislative hearing when they were cutting every one of these things that you were talking about. When they dropped that burden back on the local counties and expected us to raise taxes while they sat up there and complained about counties and cities raising taxes out of control and wanting to cut our ability to generate revenue. You know, you want to blame all this on somebody? The state of Texas is the one that put everybody where we're at today.
I agree.
They're the ones that decided in Austin that they knew best, and they cut everything out of everything, dumped it back on the locals, and then bashed us to death. Governor Abbott and all of his praise, bashing cities and counties for raising taxes, after they pushed us into the situation where we have to pick up the tab for everything that is not our responsibility to pick up the tab. You're absolutely correct. We can go and raise taxes and raise taxes and raise taxes and create all the specialty courts and hire all the people we want and do all the things that we need to do. You're absolutely right. But at what expense, and when does the state do its job, and when does the federal government do its job, other than shove it back down on the locals and make themselves look good? Because that's all this is. This is a game. This is a shell game that's being played in Austin at the expense of local taxpayers. It's exactly what it is.
I agree.
They're the ones that created the indigent problem and decided they couldn't charge them. They're the ones that didn't refund the DWI grants and all that we had grant money to do. The only reason it's in there is because there was grant funding to do it. They're the ones that didn't refund half of the stuff that's out there, and then expect us to go out here and raise taxes to clean up their mess, and they want to turn around and bash us for it. You know, that's inexcusable on the state of Texas. Completely inexcusable for them to do that to us and expect us to pick up the tab for this mess that they created, because that's what it is. It's a mess. And the local taxpayers are going to get stuck with a bill. It's just a matter of time, and it is what it is.
You know, just on my own personal point, you know, I can live with less in office supplies. You know, we'll just have to write on both sides of the paper before we throw it away. You know, we'll just have to do a lot of things to keep things as tight as we can keep them. And I'm certainly more than willing to do anything that it takes from our standpoint. But I just, I hope that we can just look at the big picture.
Now, Judge, I've sat on this court for 16 years. You've been here a while. This is not the first time this county's been in a budget crunch. It won't be the last time this county's in a budget crunch. The city's in the same shape. There's 257 counties in the state, and trust me, we're in good shape compared to some. You know, there's counties out there who relied on oil and gas revenue that's no longer there, that are cutting millions out of their budget. There's school districts, because of what Austin did, that are cutting people and cutting expenses and closing branches of schools, trying to make their budgets work. You know, I don't think the state is being fair to the local people and how this operates. You know, his department over there, the state cuts it, and then they expect us to pick up the tab for it. And his department's needed, I get it.
Yes, it is.
But they cut the funding, and they want us to pick it up, and then complain at us because we had to raise taxes to add the money that they forgot to fund. You know, I mean, where's the point where everybody screams at the state of Texas and their legislators and tell them to get... I'll be polite.
I got
Yeah, Judge, we just...
To get reasonable, to get reasonable, that's what you were gonna say.
Yeah.
We just had a county judges meeting this week and training to be on. And we all sat on the table after the academy. You know, I was surprised that this was the only county that didn't cut before. Everybody else cut 4 to 5 employees from the budget. Because exactly what Commissioner Everton said. They got all these programs like the WI court. It was a great court. I went to it. We had good people working in it. We did everything perfect. We had an audit. Everything was perfect. They just didn't fund it. There's no excuse. They can't say, well, we didn't do this, we didn't do... There was nothing you read about supposed. We did everything we were supposed to do. We audited. We were on top of it. We did the reports. We just didn't fund it. And it's very unfair for us to pick up that after they start.
I agree. It's not fair. I'm just concerned about the citizens at large.
You know, and it's the same thing that every single citizen in this, you know, I'm willing to bet you that most, probably at least 80, 90% of the people in this community didn't get a raise. But the cost of living went through the roof in the last couple of years. And you're absolutely right. You know, what do they do when bread went up? They went and bought the bread and they cut something else. It just is what it is. I mean, you know, you only have X amount of dollars, and you either eat or you don't do your medicine or you don't do something. Something has to be cut. There's no more money to just go out and add more. It doesn't work that way, which is the same thing that happens in government and everywhere else. I mean, yes, we have to cut, we have to tighten our belt, and we have to get down to the point
where we operate effectively and efficiently. And then when we do that, and there's nothing left, then we have no choice but to go to the taxpayer. But at that point, they know that we're doing everything in our power to make it work with what we have to work it with. And this is a very unusual year. I mean, I've never seen where we have always managed in the increase appraisals and all that, holding the same tax rate, we've always managed at least an additional $300,000-$400,000 a year in revenue, which is how we've managed to get pay raises there. This is the first year I've seen what we're in. And it's not just us, it's the school district, the city's in the same shape, everybody. I don't know what the heck happened. It is what it is. And we'll figure it out.
All right. All right, nothing else? We adjourn.